WADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar. Good afternoon and many thanks for tuning into West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM. This is Newslink and here are the top stories. The 15-member Security Council to decide MINUSMA's fate in the crucial vote after failed negotiations with Bamako. The Nigerian police force apprehend over 500 suspects for various crimes during sweep operations. The Petroleum Tanker Drivers Union in Ghana calls off its nationwide strike.
The union has decided to suspend strike by midnight, 29 June 2023, based on the following conditions. The contractor will increase his equipment holding on the road and ensure that riding quality is improved within 3 weeks.
A new WHO report calls on governments to put in place urgent measures to address waterborne diseases. Please stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is James Adjapong with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us. We begin in Mali as hundreds converge in the capital Bamako in solidarity with the Transition Authority over its request for the UN to withdraw the peacekeeping force deployed in the country. The rally Thursday comes ahead of today's vote at the UN Security Council, which may end the decade-long operation launched in 2013 to stabilize Mali in the face of a deadly insurgency. The United Nations Multidimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission, MINUSMA's current mandate, expires today, June 30th, but instead of renewal, Bamako asks that the 13,000 strongmen mission departs. As Abdoulaye Hassan reports, the Malian Foreign Minister, Abdoulaye Diop, cited the crisis of confidence between the two parties as a major pointer in the request.
Today may officially mark the beginning of the gradual withdrawal of MINUSMA from Mali after failed negotiations between the global organization and Bamako, following a request by the Malian Foreign Minister Abdoulaye Diop for the UN mission to leave the country with immediate effect. The 15-member Security Council, comprising 5 permanent and 10 non-permanent members, including Sierra Leone, are expected to adopt a French-drafted resolution on the effective implementation of MINUSMA's withdrawal. If passed, the peacekeeping force will, from Saturday, July 1, 2023, end its operations, transfer its tasks, as well as commence the orderly and safe drawdown and withdrawal of its personnel. This timeline of actions should enable the completion of the process at most by December 31, 2023. Until then, MINUSMA will also be authorized to provide security for UN personnel, facilities, and convoys, execute operations to extract UN personnel and humanitarian workers in danger, and provide medical evacuations. The planned end of the operation, known as MINUSMA, follows years of tensions and government restrictions since the military coup in 2020. The UN peacekeepers are credited with playing a vital role in protecting civilians against an insurgency that has killed thousands and displaced millions. However, many fear that MINUSMA's withdrawal from the silent state could only deepen the already fragile security situation across the Sahel.
Abdoulaye Hassan filed that report. Meanwhile, MINUSMA's expected withdrawal from Mali is not only a debate within the country, but across the region, particularly in Burkina Faso and Niger, both battling terrorism. According to security analysts, coastal states like Benin and Togo, as well as Côte d'Ivoire, may all be exposed to violent extremism, as already being witnessed. Mali, for its part, will rely upon the support from the Wagner fighters to combat insurgents who occupy areas in the north and center. But despite these concerns, there are regional experts like Dr. Margie Peters, who believes that ECOWAS member states, including Mali, have what it takes to face their security challenges. Take a listen.
I think for every decision we take, if we allow them to state their consequences, if they leave their consequences, there are times when you just breathe up. You pull yourself by the bootstrap and say, let's go do it. So maybe because there are other people and so we're relaxing. Even Ghana is going to be experiencing these issues. The issue of extremism terrorism will go into Ghana. They are in charge of the coast. They want to ensure that you are isolated. So all of this will happen. And right now, why are nations, why is Burkina Faso, why are they relying on joint task forces. Why is Nigeria relying on joint task forces? Because they felt there's going to be something coming from there. Nigeria has been part of that too. I mean, we have a joint task force that we're fighting. Mostly we have Nigerian generals as commandants of those joint task forces, regional joint task forces. We've done with Cameroon, we've done with Chad, we've done with Niger, we've done with all of that. What has it amounted to? So if we're compelled to face our own issues, we'll be able to. So I'm sure that if they pull out, Mali is going to deal with it. The movement towards Senegal is not going to survive it. No nation is going to go down to terrorists. Nations will bounce back. Sovereignty is not something to throw to the dust. So I think that if they say they want them to go, they know the implications, they know the challenges. No nation is going to throw away its own development because it wants to sustain its neighbors. Mali cannot keep that going if it is not beneficial to the state of their affairs because they want their neighbors to be stable. Everybody should rise up.
Do you feel that Mali is actually fighting a battle that should perhaps, if not until its withdrawal from the G5 Sahel, should have been a collective decision by the G5 group, because they will now have a reinvigorated or renewed strategy in fighting terrorism or insurgency across the Sahel beyond what it is today?
I think the truth is that the strength of anything is if you are able, if Mali is keeping its country and its borders safe, if Burkina Faso is keeping the country and its borders safe, if every country is keeping its own areas of jurisdiction safe, we don't need cross-border issues, because if you cross any border, you're coming into my territory and you know it's not safe. I don't think there's going to be any implication that the continent cannot handle.
Dr. Margie Peters is a regional governance and security analyst. Away from Mali, no less than 500 people were arrested by the Nigerian police in the north-central state of Kaduna in 2 months of sweep operations. Those arrested are suspects for various offenses ranging from banditry, culpable homicide, rape tracks vandalism, armed cattle rustling, and other related crimes. Tofik Abdul Nasir has the rest of the details.
Kaduna, in north-central Nigeria, has been ravaged in recent times by banditry activity, kidnapping for ransom, and other social vices, resulting in the deaths of hundreds of people in the first half of this year alone. The police, during a briefing at the State Force Command, mentioned a man by the name of Ismail Mohammed as among the suspects. The suspect had abducted his biological brother, Kabiru Mohammed, and later killed him after collecting 120,000 naira, which amounts to $220 as ransom from the family. A spokesman for the Kaduna State Police Command, DSP Mohammed Jalige, told journalists that during the May to June sweep, 4 AK-47 rifles, 3 revolver pistols, 2 pump-action guns, 2,800 railway sleepers, and 9 stolen vehicles of different brands were recovered from the suspects. Jalige also disclosed that the noticeable peace and tranquility currently enjoyed in the state is a pointer to the command's quest to protect the lives and properties of the people of the state. Despite these assurances, however, bandits continue to attack villages on the outskirts of the capital, killing almost anything that moves.
Tofik Abdul Nasir reporting there.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Ghana, the National Petroleum Tanker Drivers Union has suspended a sit-down strike following a crunch meeting with the Ministry of Roads and Highways. The strike, which started on Monday, resulted in fuel and LPG shortages at some pumps across the country. The Drivers Union was demanding that the roads in the petroleum enclaves in part of the country ease their operations. Atiawini Bila Lawson has the story.
Various liquid petroleum gas (LPG) outlets across the country had already started experiencing gas shortages following the strike by the Ghana National Petroleum Tankers Drivers Union. The situation, according to the LPG Marketers Association, led to the formation of long queues at LPG outlets and increased pressure on the few outlets with stock. Earlier on Thursday, the union leaders were in a crunch meeting with the Minister for Roads, Highways and Transport. The minister responsible for roads, Kwesi Amoako-Atta, pleaded with the drivers to rescind their decision and assured them that their concerns will be addressed soon.
3 or 4.
We know the impact your work plays in the economy, so we will do all we can to assist you. Beginning today, we are going to form a joint technical committee.
Program, you see me going around all the time. If this discussion, I promise you, every week, once a week, I'll be coming here.
After long deliberations and negotiations, the union decided to suspend their strike. The national vice chairman of the union, Sunday Alabi, addressing the press, indicated that the decision to halt the strike was because both parties had agreed that the group's demands would be met.
The union has decided to suspend strike by midnight today, 29 June 2023, based on the following conditions. 1. Though works are currently ongoing on toll road, and the contractor will increase his equipment holding on the road and ensure that riding quality is improved within 3 weeks.
To track the promises made by the minister, a 7-member committee has been formed with representatives from the Ministry of Roads and Highways and the Tanker Drivers Union. Reporting for Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Atiewin Imbila Lawson in Accra.
In other news, Liberian President George Weah has commended the United States for its leadership role in the country and the world over, stressing that his country will remain a true partner to Washington. Weah says his administration and Liberians will continue to work alongside the U.S. in defense of democracy globally. WADR's Darlington Pogba in Monrovia reports.
President George Weah speaking Thursday during a program marking the 247th Independence Day celebration of the United States, said Washington has invested hugely in Liberia and will continue to protect and defend its interests globally.
We will continue to be aggressive for what is right for Liberia in order to save Liberia from those who want to be aggressive for what is wrong for Liberia. We are also very proud of the leadership role the United States has played and continue to play on the world stage. We pledge to remain your traditional friend and ally and to fight along with you in our common cause in defense of democracy across the world.
Meanwhile, the outgoing United States Ambassador Michael McCarthy, for his part, appreciated the Liberian Authority for standing with the United States over the years.
I also admire this administration's efforts to work with the legislature to further strengthen the freedom of the press. Only societies with courage and maturity allow opposition figures to voice their dissent, especially during an election year.
The United States gained its independence on July 4, 1776, but the U.S. Embassy near Monrovia decided to celebrate the event on Thursday ahead of the departure of its ambassador Michael McCarthy shortly. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Darlington Pogba in Monrovia.
We are back to Nigeria as the country marks the 2023 International Day Against Drug Abuse. A group has called for an alternative to incarceration of those involved in drugs and other behavioral addictions. At an event in Lagos, southwestern Nigeria, officials of the group are proposing an initiative named Smart Recovery Program as an evidence-based approach that focuses on the general well-being of such addicts. WADR's Abuja correspondent Usman Umar tells us more.
Many Nigerians between the ages of 15 and 64 years are said to be victims of drug and other behavioral addictions. When caught by law enforcement agencies, incarceration is usually the destination of such addicts. A group, Resurgence Mental Health Support Initiative, is however advocating for an alternative to incarceration known as Smart Recovery Program. Honest Anaba, clinical director of the group, tells us more about the program.
So SMART stands for Self-Management and Recovery Training. Just one tool that really comes to mind is cost-benefit analysis. So there we ask questions of, if you don't use now, what would go wrong? And if you don't use now, what would you benefit?
A former drug addict, Deborah, who has gone through the program, speaks on how before now she thought drugs provided a quick fix to her daily challenges.
I was abused as an adolescent, and my family didn't handle it in a way that made me feel like I was protected, I was, important. I turned to marijuana to kind of make myself feel better. One of the main tools I used was cost-benefit analysis. weigh your pros and your cons.
An official of the Lagos state government says this alternative, if well implemented, could be a game changer in the way drug addiction is handled in the country.
Currently, our laws, tend to favor incarceration rather than, providing this option. But we also see that this is actually an effective option of reducing, reincarceration and reoffenders, from getting into the hands of, our law enforcement officers.
As the United Nations Office on Drug and Crimes, UNODC, recommends compassion and an evidence-based approach for the rehabilitation of addicts, this group is taking the first critical step towards the implementation in Nigeria. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM. Here's a reminder of our top stories. The 15-member Security Council to decide MINUSMA's fate in a crucial vote after failed negotiations with Bamako. The Nigerian police force apprehends over 500 suspects for various crimes during sweep operations. The Petroleum Tanker Drivers Union in Ghana calls off its nationwide strike. And a new WHO report calls on governments to put in place urgent measures to address waterborne diseases. Still ahead, we have our guest interview and some sports update. Kindly stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
It's 16 minutes past 12 in our studios. This is West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and all around the world on WADR.org. Don't forget, you can follow our discussions on Twitter and Instagram at WADR News and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Find us on YouTube at WADR News. And to some health matters, a new report suggests that at least 1.4 million deaths could have been avoided if governments had focused their efforts on access to drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene. The report by the World Health Organization, WHO, states that half the world's population still does not have access to adequate clean water, which causes huge health problems. The UN Health Agency is urging governments to put in place urgent measures to address the situation. More details with Marty C.
According to a new report from the World Health Organization, WHO, at least 1.4 million deaths could be prevented if governments commit to making greater efforts to improve access to drinking water. Among the consequences of the lack of drinking water include diarrhea and acute respiratory infections due to inadequate wash hygiene. These two combined in 2019 caused 356,000 deaths. Among children under the age of 5, the health risks associated with water, sanitation, and hygiene were responsible for 395,000 deaths, representing 7.6% of all deaths in this age group. This included 273,000 deaths from diarrhea and 112,000 deaths due to acute respiratory infections. In response to the situation, the WHO warns that governments must take urgent measures, such as speeding up action to make drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene a reality for everyone, then concentrating on efforts on the poorest and most disadvantaged. The UN Health Agency finally proposed the adoption of national health systems to improve data on the population. WHO also urged other agencies, multilateral partners, the private sector, and civil society organizations to support states in achieving the goal.
Marty C. filed that report.
Politics,
Analyses on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Reactions have followed the recent engagement between the Ministry of Roads and Highways and the National Petroleum Tankers Union in Ghana. The two parties have reached a consensus for the suspension of the latest sit-down strike. The strike was suspended yesterday to allow the road authorities to assess the critical situation of the deplorable road networks in the petroleum enclaves of parts of the country. Our guest, Paul Kwadwo-Frimpong, a road contractor, shares his opinion on the actual concerns causing the delayed road construction in critical networks of the country. He also makes recommendations to the government to actually fulfill its part in paying contractors and fixing these road networks.
Of course, they are calling for proper road networks, and I'm much aware, because I'm in the field, I'm much aware that most of these roads have been awarded to various contractors or are on various contracts, which is deemed to be executed. But generally, government's inability to honor certificates or, let's say, payments of contractors has made most contractors declined or decided to hold on with their engagement with the government as far as construction is concerned, hoping that they will be paid or their certificates will be honored before they continue on their various works. So yes, I appreciate that a lot needs to be done as far as road network is concerned. But equally, it's a very capital-intensive project. Roads are very capital-intensive projects for which if a contractor's claim is not honored or if a contractor is not paid at regular intervals, it makes it difficult. It makes it very difficult for the contractor to pool resources. Most especially when bankers are also declining to loan out or give out credit facility to contractors. That is worsening the case now because most of the banks are per what they have witnessed in the previous years. Most of these banks were owned by contractors, and we owe bankers huge amounts of money. We contractors take a lot when it comes to seeking for credit facilities. And so that is also one major thing that is impacting on continuous execution of road projects. So basically, that is the reality on the ground. Government is not paying, bankers are not giving credit facilities to contractors.
So, Mr. Paul, if I must come in, the government assured them that, of course, they will critically assess the road networks. These promises that government give out, but then based on what you are saying, you contractors are not paid. Is it like it is something that government is saying politically, but has not really sat down with you people to assess the situation?
Government always promises for that on every department of or sector of the economy. Government keeps promises. Sometimes they think maybe their promises will be enough to calm tensions down. But when the citizens or we, the stakeholders, realize that the promises have been going on for a long time, but we are not seeing anything as far as tangibility is concerned. We are not seeing anything tangible as far as the promises is concerned.
The citizenry is giving up on the various promises of the government, the continuous promises which aren't being fulfilled. And like I said, it wouldn't make you forced to push in extra resources in executing any project because you aren't sure of the promises. So that is what I can say about it. That is the reason why government is promising, but still stakeholders aren't committed to executing their part of contracts.
So finally, with road contractors and petroleum tanker union, do you have a connection as to how the two of you can be able to work together to understand the situation, to avert the shortage of fuel at various pumps? Because a lot of citizens are in queues hoping that they will get pumps, but because of these road networks, they are not able to.
Yes. I'm saying that every road user has a connection with a contractor as far as execution of road is concerned, but not directly as far as engagement is concerned. They are much concerned that government should engage road contractors. So government is the referee in this case, and it makes it difficult. We may not have a direct engagement because if they try to engage us, we will equally blame the government that we aren't paid. So it's all rests on the shoulders of the government to make sure that contractors are paid so that they can get back to their various sites to get works completed. That is it.
Paul Kojo is a road contractor with NATO Construction Limited in Ghana. And let's join Sankole Janko for some sports updates.
Hello there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Morocco maintained their position as the top-ranked team in Africa according to the latest FIFA Coca-Cola World Rankings released on Thursday. The North African side keeps their top spot after victories in the AFCON qualifiers this month. Morocco overtook reigning African champions Senegal from the top spot after their impressive performance, becoming the first African country to reach the semi-final of the FIFA World Cup. Meanwhile, Senegal also maintained their second spot in Africa following a draw and a win in the AFCON qualifiers in June. But this could not help them to topple Morocco from the top spot. Tunisia, Algeria and Egypt completed the top 5 ranked teams in Africa. Meanwhile, Nigeria has moved from 40th to 39th position in the latest world rankings. 6th in Africa. The Super Eagles' gain could be attributed to their dramatic 3-2 win against Sierra Leone. Elsewhere, World Cup champions Argentina remain number 1 in the world nearly 3 months on from regaining top spot thanks to friendly wins over Australia and Indonesia, according to media reports. France and Brazil maintain 2nd and 3rd spots respectively in the rankings, while England and Belgium are 4th and 5th place respectively. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
Thank you, Sankole Janko, for that sports update. We have come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to our listeners in the Gambia via Hot 104.3 FM, and in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM Lofa County, and in Ghana on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi. Nyas Belimo has been on the console. Do interact with us via social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am James Adjapong. Good afternoon.
News, talk, music, get it all 24 hours on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar.